Hello, good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, halfway through our sessions this week, and we are coming at you today with a full body conditioning session. So we're going to start off with a warm-up. No equipment needed, just our body and our mat. And for our conditioning circuit, we have one big O conditioning circuit that we are going to go through today. All you will need is your dumbbells. If you do not have dumbbells, well, then you are going to grab onto some form of a household item. It could be a water bottle, it could be a throw pillow, something along those lines. We'll talk about it when we get there, but let's get you started with this warm-up. Starting with you joining me at the very end of your mat, standing hip-width apart in our feet, soft knees. We're going to send our hands down to the floor, keeping our legs straight, getting that opening stretch through the back of the legs. We'll walk ourselves down to the bottom. Once you get here, we're going to lift up the hips, walk ourselves back up to the top, reaching our arms above our head, and we'll give ourselves that nice feeling side bending action. One time to each side. And then we will go back down into that second walkout, doing 3 of these total. So you can come on down into your second one, and lifting up those hips to the ceiling, reaching the arms above the head, and then we have a little side bend, feeling that stretch down the side of the body. And I'll have you do one more of those for me to make it 3 total. Let's do it. So we'll take our time, especially on that last one. Again, feeling that nice opening stretch down both sides. Once you finish those, we are going back into 3 more walkouts. But rather than standing and side bending at the top, we're going to do a little something at the bottom, including stepping in and then opening up towards that stepped in leg. We'll close that, reset into the plank, and then do the same thing on the other side. Opening up, following the hands with the eyes. Reset, and then walk back up to the top, just as we did. Standing tall, nothing fancy at the top. We'll go back down. I want you to do that 2 more times to make it 3 total of those ones there. So we'll go through those ones again, stepping our foot as close as we can to our hands. We're not forcing anything though. Still pretty early in the morning. Most of us are doing this in the morning or in the afternoon, or really just after not doing too much movement before this. So we want to ease into it. Again, take our time with it and just work with what we're feeling in our bodies, not forcing anything. So we'll go through that last one there. Again, exhaling, opening up to both sides. One side, the other side, and then we'll walk it up to the top here. Once you are done those 3, with that opening situation at the bottom, you're going to find something to hold on to. So I'm going to use this wall here. We're going to get some of our infamous leg swings going. So I'm slightly leaning over towards that wall so I have room to swing my leg forward and backward equals 1. We're going to do 10 times in this forward and backward leg swing. We're trying to open up the front of the hip, the back of the hip. Might feel a little bit of stretching in the back of the legs. We're trying to keep it straight. 10 times there, back, and then same side, same leg. We're going to turn and face the wall. Side to side now, getting the stretch down the sides, inside and outer part of the thighs. The hips, 10 times there and back, same count, there and back is 1, 10 of them, and then we'll switch, and we'll do the other leg. So same thing, going back to our forward and backward stretch, going through 10 of these total, breathing through them. Again, we're trying to hold on so that we don't have to think or worry about balance, which is always nice. And then, again, we'll turn, face that wall, and get this side to side lateral leg swing going, feeling again that inner thighs opening up, outside of the thighs, outside of the hips, 10 and 10. Once you've done that one, we're going to stand ourselves hip width apart with our feet parallel. So no angle out in the toes, soft knees, working on a hip hinge. Arms are going to be down by our sides at this 90-degree angle of the elbows. As we hinge the hips back, I'm going to reach my arms over my head, ending up in our overhead hip hinge. Then I'll stand, pull my hips forward as well as pull my arms into this upright position here. That is 1, and we are doing 10 of these. So again, we're trying to strictly just move through the hips. Sticking out the butt and then pulling it forward, getting again that nice opening stretch through the back of the legs. And then we're going to feel a bit of work happening in our glutes as they squeeze and pull us up to the top. So I'll let you guys go through 10 total of these ones here. As we reach that end position of the hip hinge, we should not see our hands because they're going to be above our head. And then again, we'll pull them in to that nice 90-degree angle through all 10 of those reps. So we'll go through those ones there. Always feels nice to open up the hamstrings, especially after the last couple days, what we've been doing up in the Zoom room. Okay, so 10 of those. Then we are going to separate our feet into a squat stance. So for this one, we're a little bit wider in our heels. We want a slight angle out in our toes. Arms are now going to be at this 90-degree angle situation here. We're going to sit down into a squat and reach our arms up above our head. Coming back into the standing position, trying to meet that 90 degrees lifted elbows right here. And we'll go through 10 reps total. Same rules apply. At the bottom of the squat, we should not see our hands. And really, this does depend on our bodies, our overhead mobility. Some of us might be a little bit more forward, but the goal is to get those arms up and behind, or rather over top of our head. So we'll try to get that going on here. You got 10 opportunities, 10 chances to make that happen for yourself. And again, this one we're going to get that nice leg warm up, of course, which we're feeling, as well as waking up, warming up some stuff in the shoulders and in the upper back. So we'll rock through 10 of those. Once we are done 10, come on down. Join me on the floor. We have 2 movements, warm-up movements down here on the floor. The first one is, once again, about the hips. We're going to go through some hip circles, starting off in this all-4 position, shoulders stacked on the wrists, hips stacked on the knees. Lifting up one leg, 90 degrees at that knee. We're going to circle it out 5 times in one direction. So whatever way you want to start with, just stick with it through 5. And then we're going to go reverse through that circle, 5. So again, we're getting a nice mobility stretch happening through our hip, as well as some activation work for our glutes. So you're going to feel your butt's burning. We're going through 5 on the side. Again, 5 in each way. And then we switch, of course, because we have to keep it even. And we're going to do the other side. Again, 5 one way. And then again, we'll reverse those circles, trying our best to not open up our hips too much. We don't want to be opening up like a male dog peeing on a fire hydrant, although these ones can be called fire hydrants. We want to close that hip off and limit that movement. So once you're finished 10 and 10, 5 each way, don't go anywhere, because the next one is a bird dog. We're going to extend opposite arm and leg, holding it here for 1, 2, 3, and then we'll bring it in and switch sides, holding the other side for 1, 2, 3. As we do this, we want to make sure that we're not arching our back. So we actually want to do a little bit of a round, and that is to prevent any sort of arching from happening. That's also going to, again, make you feel a little bit more work happening in the glutes as we hold for 3 seconds. Every single rep, we're holding that 3-second count at the top. Might be a little wobbly. Again, might be feeling work happening in your back, in your glutes, in your shoulder. That's what we're going for here. So we're doing 10 of these total, 5 on each side with that 3, 2, 1 second pause. These ones are way harder than they look. I mean, the bird dogs, they can be quite easy, but when you add this pause in here and we're working on that sort of core connection of not allowing our back to arch, hopefully we're feeling worked in this one. I'm feeling the glutes, maybe feeling our abs and core a little bit. So let's do those. Once you're finished, we are going to stand on up to the top. I'm going to check my list. Yes, calculations are correct. We have one more left up here, which is our side lunges. So we're going to come on over to one side of our mat, working with some space on the other side here, stepping out into the side lunge, shifting back into that starting side, and then using this leg to push ourselves up to the top. That was 1. We are doing 10. So arms can come in front of us here to help promote our hips to be pushed back behind us. We want to try our best to have this knee stay in line with our heel and rather send our hips back behind us the entire time, so that we have that nice positioning rather than pushing our knee forward. We're sticking out the butt, getting that opening stretch through the adductors. We're going to feel that a lot through the inner thighs. Adductors, technical term. And we're doing 10 of these total. Again, with that nice shift at the bottom, staying low, and then we push up to the top as we reach each side. 10 of them, and then probably feeling a little bit more warm than when we started this party. We're going to grab a little bit of water, go and take a couple deep breaths while these guys finish up, and we are going to get you started on our circuit that we are working through today. So today we are essentially jumping right into it. We are going to be working with 5 different exercises. You shall be on a timer. I am going to be setting our timer as I speak for 45 seconds on. So we're going to have a work interval of 45 seconds and a rest interval of 15 seconds. In addition to that little 15 seconds rest, or really mostly just transition time to switch between our movements, we are also going to take 1 full minute after we complete 1 entire round of this big old circuit that we are doing. Again, it consists of 5 exercises. So that's going to conclude 1 round, 5 movements, and then the 1 minute of rest at the end. And we have 3 sets of this very fun step. So you're going to have to do everything that I show you 3 times total, and then that will conclude the hard part, the conditioning part of our session today. We're going to finish off today as well with a nice little stretch at the end together, which is always a good way to end her off. Okay, so hopefully you don't have any questions, because I mean it's a one-way street here. Can't really ask them anyways. We're going to get you started with the first movement, which is going to be one we've recently been working on, which is our single leg burpees. So what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of break this one down for you. The other movements I will show you and talk about in that 15 seconds of rest in between our exercises that we're working with on the 45. But let's talk about the single leg burpee. Again, you will need dumbbells. Disclaimer, there are 2 movements that use dumbbells. And again, if you don't have dumbbells, grab a water bottle, grab a throw pillow, grab something to hold in your hands if you don't have those dumbbells, okay? So these burpees, they're a little different than our average burpees. We're not going to be jumping in and out. We're going to go hands onto the floor, stepping out into that plank, and then using one leg to step us in and up, driving this knee up to 90 degrees. The same leg is going to go down, back into the plank, and then we'll alternate. So now that other leg will stand us up to the top, driving up this knee here. So this is going to be us. Now before we start this is one we've recently been working on. We've had this in here pretty consistently every week. So I want to show you guys an option for those of us who are looking to challenge ourselves. And that will be doing this with a single arm rather than having 2 arms. So what you're going to do is send one arm down. We're going to step out into that plank, and then we'll have that opposite hand with that opposite foot, and I'll switch, of course, now over to this side, and then I'll step up, driving up that knee. So that one kind of takes a few reps to kind of get the rhythm of it, but once you have it, you'll completely understand how it makes things a lot more challenging, because we're sort of relying upon just the 2 limbs rather than our 2 hands and the foot. So that is your option if you would like to try that out. Okay, let's do this thing. So 45 seconds. Once again, we will have 15 seconds in between. You'll have to listen up and watch me on the screen to see what your next movement is. There are 5 total, and then we'll have a nice minute of rest once we're finished our first round. 3 sets total. Are you ready? Ready or not? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So we're starting off with this first set. Again, the single leg burpee, so stepping out, driving that knee up to the top. Again, if you want to try something a little bit more challenging, then we have that single arm situation going on. So rather than a little bit of balance, having the 2 arms in front of us, we can have that opposite hand working with that opposite leg, that knee, that foot. 15 seconds left. And yes, it does take a little bit of thought, a little bit of coordination. as we go through these. All right, 5 seconds left. Give me one more here. 3, 2, 1, and time. Okay, so for the next one, we're gonna grab onto our dumbbells. Now, if you're working with something heavier than, like, I would say 10 pounds, what you'll wanna do is just put one down and hold one sideways. But if you are comfortable and confident, you can hold one in each hand. We're gonna push that dumbbell up and keep it there as we step back into alternating lunges. So we're going right side and left side. And this is us for 45 seconds. We want to make sure that we're not arching too much through our back. We're drawing in our belly button to our spine to try to keep everything nice and tight in our core. And again, if you don't have dumbbells and or if they're too heavy to keep above your head, we're going to just hold a water bottle, a pillow, something above our head as we go through these alternating lunges. 10 seconds left. And yes, there's a little bit of leg work in here, of course, but we should feel our heart rate elevating and our core working and rest. Very nice. Okay, so we'll put those dumbbells down and aside. Number 3 here, we're going to be working with our break dancers. So we're going to get down onto the floor into that all 4 position, hands in the knees, pop off knees. We're going to rotate, kick that leg through, come back to the center, and then switch and do the same thing on the other side. Now, this one, again, this is not our first time doing this one. We know it's quite challenging. So if you do need to make it a little easier, what you can do is simply just work on tapping your shoulders, like so, and then eventually you can work with adding in that kick through, okay? So 15 seconds left. Let's do it. I'm warming up in here. I'm gonna open up this window. Let's get it. Okay, so breathing through these ones. One more to each side. 3, 2, 1, and time. Okay, so moving on to the 4th one. So once again, I'm going to hold my single dumbbells. These ones are a little bit heavy for this one. Again, if you have lighter ones, you can hold one in each hand. We're going to get ourselves into a bit of a squat stance here, swinging the weight through our legs and then stepping forward into a lunge, having that weight end up over our head. So we want to find a bit of a rhythm here with that swing and that catch, alternating legs right side and then left side. And this is you for our 45 seconds. Let's do it. Halfway there already, 20 seconds left. Breathe in through it. And again, try to find that swinging rhythm. There you go. 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Time. Okay, awesome work. So the last one, we're going to have some side shuffle with an athletic burpee on each side. So I'm going to get a little cut off on my screen here because I don't quite have enough room to do this full on. But we're going to athletic stance. We're going to side shuffle over to one side, jump out into the burpee, and then side shuffle over to the other side, jump out into the burpee. Let's go. If you're low impact, if you don't jump, we're going to step out, step in, and then we'll just work with these side steps rather than having that sort of more active shuffle going on. Woo! 20 seconds left. Feeling like I need that minute rest already. So I know you guys are probably feeling this as well. So let's try to pace ourselves here, push ourselves. 15 seconds left. Working through this one, breathing through this one. You got this. Give me 2 more. 3, 2, 1, and time and rest. And we have 1 minute on the clock where all we are doing is simply just resting. Okay, so hopefully you're feeling good. We're not going to feel, the most gas, although we are probably feeling like our heart rate is getting up there, which is the goal of today's session. What we're going to do now is to do that 2 more times, okay? So you'll have 2 more chances to do all of these movements. Once again, though, we have another 35 seconds before we are going to start our second set, which I will remind you of all those movements because there's a lot of them, 5 of them. First one, again, is that single leg burpee, that optional single arm addition. Yes. So we really do have to get make the most out of these movements because we are only doing this 2 more times. So we don't have any time, any options to waste here. We want to make sure that we're pushing ourselves through all of these. We'll have lots of time, again, to rest within this minute between our rounds, as well as at the end of our session, okay? So get ready to start in 5 seconds. Single leg burpees, second set, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Second round of these ones. So again, stepping out, in, driving up the knee. Alternating sides, driving up the knee. If you remember the first time you did these, hopefully you're feeling a lot more coordinated in them. Because again, they do take a little bit of thought. Halfway there, we have 20 seconds left, my friends. So we'll pace ourselves, push ourselves through this. Going for at least 1 more on each side, maybe even pushing for 2 more on each side. 10 seconds left, you got this, come on. 5, 4, 3, 2, and time. Okay, very nice work. Second one is those overhead lunges. So again, we'll grab onto our weights. Maybe you want to challenge yourself. Try holding 2 up there, something a little heavier, and let's go. So stepping back into the lunge, right side and left side. Most important thing in this one is keeping that strong, straight arm overhead position. So if you feel like your arms are starting to kind of fall like this, push them back up there, okay? Because that is part of the deal. That is the deal on this one. It's the overhead position. So we'll try to lock that in. If you are feeling like you're not going to make it, just don't sit so low in the lunges. You can just step back and not sink as deep down to 90 degrees. And I would prefer that with straight arms over your arms sinking and you lunging all the way down, okay? 3, 2, 1. Time. Awesome work. Okay, so we'll put those down, put them aside. Make sure that we have some room because that third one is break dancers, which again, we need some space on our floor. And let's go. So again, we're in that off knee position. We're trying to rotate and kick those legs through side to side, opening up our chest as we rotate over to one side. Oftentimes with this one, I actually like to come off of my mat, have my feet sort of on the floor rather than on the mat because they kind of tend to twist and it'll sort of bunch up our mat and move our mat. So if you're feeling that way, feel free to just kind of shimmy off your mat. 20 seconds left though. Let's try to maintain that strong off knee position so our knees are just hovering above the floor and our butt isn't shooting into the air up to the ceiling too high. 1 more, 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Nice job. Okay, stand it up. Grab onto your weights. So same rules apply. Last time I just used 1 dumbbell. If you want, you can try using 2. Squat stance. Dumbbells in front of us, we're going to swing them through and then have them end up above our head, stepping into that lunge. Right side and then left side. Woo! Let's do it. 30 seconds left. There you go. Okay, so we'll work through this one here. I always get confused of the back lunge. We're trying to step forward into the lunge. Sitting down into a squat between each rep. Woohoo! 15 seconds left. There you go. Yes, yes, yes. Strong finish here. 1 more. 3, 2, 1. Awesome job. Okay. Great work. So we're going to move on to that last one. That side shuffle with our athletic burpee, which maybe these burpees, the double leg, the jump out, feel a little easier than that single leg with the step out. So again, we'll need some space. Jump out to the bottom, side shuffle. And remember, in this one, if you have more space, then you can side shuffle longer. You don't have to limit to just the length of your mat. You guys know that I don't really have that space where I do, but I would get cut off on my screen, which is completely fine for you. Stay on screen for me. So 20 seconds left and working with whatever length you have, trying to get that athletic burpee on each side. And the nice thing about a longer length, so that you don't end up doing as much of those burpees, which we can agree is probably good news. 5 seconds left, unless you really like them. You're crazy like that. 3, 2, and time. Okay, awesome. So we're gonna rest now. 1 minute of rest. Breathing, trying to get that air in, get some water in, taking some sips of H2O. Okay, 60 seconds. One more set, my friends. Look at us go. Once we're finished this last set, we are done. The hard work, okay? Which is nice. It's kind of short and maybe not so sweet, short and spicy as I like to say. But this is the last set, last chance on these ones. So we're going to try our best to push ourselves harder than we did on those first 2 sets. Our body knows what's going on. We've had 2 opportunities to do these exercises already. So this is the last time you're going to be here. After this, it is, I don't want to say smooth sailing, but it's going to be substantially easier than what this last round is going to be. Okay, we're going to have some mobility and some stretching work. So starting in about 15 seconds, take a couple more deep breaths, and then we will finish off with our last round, our conditioning circuit. Yes, okay. Single leg burpees starting in 5 seconds. So get ready, ready or not. 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Last round of them. Okay, so hands on the floor and stepping up with one leg, driving that knee up, and then we go back down with that driven up knee. Yes. Alternating right and left. There it is. Okay, so pushing through this, breathing through this, 20 seconds left. You're halfway through, so let's try to pick up our pace. But again, more importantly than anything is control. We don't want to be flopping and falling all over the place. We want to get that single leg benefit by keeping it standing on one leg. 5 seconds left, let's go. 3, 2, 1, rest. Okay, overhead reverse lunges. Next up. So grab onto your dumbbells. We're gonna stick them above our head. 3, 2, and let's go. Stepping back, alternating sides, right side, left side. And most importantly, focusing on keeping those arms up, above your head, straight, and not losing our neck. We want to try to relax our shoulders. But again, keep those arms lifted up high. There you go. As much as you don't want to. Remember, this is the last time. So most importantly is that you do this now, all right? More than halfway. 15 seconds left. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Right side, left side. There you go. Straight arms, get them up there. 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Okay, third one, the break dancers. So we'll put those weights down, put them aside, and come on down onto the floor. Get in that all 4 position. Hands, knees, popping off the knees, rotating arm to the chest, kicking that leg through. Try and keep this even on both sides. Trying not to kick your plant or your wall or pictures. And creating the space that you need. 30 seconds left, you guys. You got this. So this one, above everything else, we're trying to, again, get your heart rate up. But that being said, we don't want to be falling side to side. Control is very important just for injury prevention reasons. So 10 more seconds. Let's maybe go for 2 more. 1 more on each side. Taking our time with it. 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Awesome job. Okay. Breathe in, breathe in. Grabbing onto those dumbbells, we have that swing. We're going to swing the dumbbells up into that overhead, squatting between each one. Let's go. Last time you're here. So again, we'll try to get our butts down into that squat or really deadlift position. It can be a little bit lifted. You don't have to go all the way down unless you want to make it a bit more challenging. Then get your butt down there, okay? 25 seconds left. There you go. Nice strong core. Again, trying to draw in that belly button to our spine, as we always do, especially when we're swinging something like this and ending up in that overhead. 10 seconds left. One more on each side. Yes, yes, and time. Okay. Nice work, you guys. Awesome. So, one more, last one. That side shuffle to athletic burpee, and then we're gonna cool down, get into our mobility stretching. Let's go. So again, athletic position, trying to side shuffle over. We have that athletic burpee, and then we side shuffle back over, trying to stay low the entire time. You're really never standing up, right? We want to stay low. Woo, that scared the crap out of me. Brother's dog just knocked over some bottles. Are you good? I'm good. All right, keep it going, you guys. 20 seconds left. My heart rate's going now. Let's do it. Pushing through it. 15 seconds. Okay, try to get there and back. 2 more times. Yes, yes. One more time. Let's go. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and time. All right, everyone. There it is, the work. The work is done, the hard work. Now we're going to go into our cool down. So the most important thing that you do for the next 2 minutes, which we have on the timer here, is simply just cool down. Because again, the intensity of those exercises, the lack of rest that we had within that circuit, we're probably feeling really hot and heavy, like our heart is beating in our chest, like we're breathing all that air in. So what we're going to do is try to get that air in deep into our belly, as I always talk about when we're trying to cool down, calm down, because the next part here, our mobility and our stretching, we don't want to be feeling like we just did a crazy conditioning session like we feel right now, okay? We want to feel like we could actually have a conversation and like we can sit down and feel okay, okay? So what you got to do right now is do a couple laps around your room, around your mat, the space that you have. We have done 60 seconds of this so far. We're going to take another minute of it, where again, all we're doing is just resting, okay? And this might look a little different for all of us. I mean, some of us are going to be able to calm down and cool down a lot faster, which is great. And that's actually the goal, is by doing all this conditioning work that we do, the fact that we can calm down more efficiently than maybe we did in the past, or we used to. My brother's diesel truck. Okay, so 30 more seconds here. We're again, water, walking, breathing, all of those things. And then we shall go into our mobility, and then we are finishing with a nice static stretch. So quickly, while we're still cooling down here, I want to talk about the difference between mobility and flexibility. So flexibility is what we do at the end of our strength sessions when we're doing those static holds and we're holding and pulling our body into those positions to train our flexibility or elongate our muscles, our tendons, everything in our joints. Mobility is our body's ability to move our joints and our muscles and our limbs into those positions. So for example, this would be flexibility. So me pulling in my foot towards my heel towards my butt like this. Mobility would be me being able to get to that position without an external force actively helping me out. So hopefully that makes sense, the difference between those two. So what we're going to do first is work on our mobility before we go into our flexibility or our stretching work. Both of these are equally important. We, most of the time, if not all of the time, incorporate this mobility into our exercises, into our warm-ups, even into a little bit of our stretching. And it is almost more important than being flexible, being able to do those stretches and reach those positions by ourselves. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to turn off this timer here. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit more back down to earth. I'm going to angle our camera down. Sorry about the noise there, guys. It's nothing new in this household. It's always loud in here. So what we're going to do is have a seat, down on the floor here and get ourselves into our 90-90 position. Hello and welcome. So this is a really common mobility movement that we do on Mondays. It's in the program before we do our leg movements. So often we'll just kind of flip-flop back and forth. What we're going to do today is stop on one side. We want to make sure we're in this proper 90-degree position in both of our knees. You can also line up the bottom of your foot in line with that shin there to ensure that you are here. Now, some of us are going to have a really hard time sitting up. Hopefully you are feeling better than you did, 6 months ago, 3 months ago when you maybe first started joining me on these live sessions. But that being said, you still might feel quite tight and you might feel like you have to sort of slightly lean back in order to feel comfortable. You should not feel pain, okay? So you shouldn't feel like pinchy pain in your hips and your knees, anywhere like that. If you're feeling that, I want you to ease off and find a position where you don't feel that. For most of us, just leaning back with our hands will fix that problem. So what we're going to do now is work on the hip mobility that is required to lift up our knee into this external rotation. So I'm lifting up my knee away from the floor, which is going to tap into the muscles in my hips, and we're going to try to go through 10 reps total, where all we're doing is lifting up. So again, you probably will recognize this one, and as you guys are doing this, I'm seeing that my computer is angry at me and asking to be plugged in. Let me just plug this bad boy in. Okay, so again, this is something that we will do sort of in our warm-ups before our leg days. But today we're going to focus solely on this and sort of being a bit more conscious of what's happening here. So you'll probably feel a little cramping sensation in the hips, a little bit of pinching working there. So again, should not be painful. If you're feeling pain, just lean back a bit. That should take that pain away. But we're going to go through 10 reps total of that one there. So again, that's trying to wake up and warm up these little muscles in the sides of our hips. The second one that we're going to do is to try to lift up this entire foot. Now this one is a lot more challenging. Very important is that we keep this knee pushed down to the floor. So I'm not trying to lift up the entire leg. I'm trying to strictly just lift up that foot. Look, there it is. Now, this one every day is different, and even for me, every day is different. And I consider myself quite mobile, and I practice this every week, if not a couple times a week. So what makes this a lot more successful is leaning away from that foot, and you're probably going to have a much easier time lifting up that foot. So we're going to try to do that 10 times total. You might, again, get that same, if not a more intense cramping sensation in the hip, and these muscles, we just don't use them that often. And that's really what mobility comes down to, is using our muscles in ways that we probably don't normally use them. Again, to kind of reach those uncomfortable or not so natural positions. And so we're going to go through 10 of these total, like this. If you're getting a bit of cramp, you can sort of just rest a bit, straighten out the leg, come back here and try to get back going into it again. And you'll find that you might even be able to now do this one sitting upright, because again, you've woken up those muscles. So we're staying on this side. We have one more that we're going to do. And we might want to lean over. It's a lift with a kick. So we're going to lift up and sort of kick that leg away, come back here, and do that 10 times total. So for those of us who are feeling ourselves, we're feeling strong in this, maybe you didn't have to lean over, same rules apply. You can absolutely do this trying to sit upright, which is the goal eventually. But again, for most of us, it's just not going to happen, and that is completely fine. I understand that, which is why I showed you this little lean, because you just probably might need to do that over there. So let's do this 10 times, and then we are finally going to switch sides. So we're going to repeat all of that stuff that we just did on the first side, starting again with lifting up this knee. Now, another thing that I want to talk about here, which I didn't really talk about on the first side because it doesn't really matter so much. What matters is the comfort level in this 90-90 position, is getting both of our butt cheeks on the floor. Now, most of us are going to have one hip sort of hiked way up, and this really just comes down to your muscles and everything in your joints being tight or loose, depending on how you're feeling. And this will improve in time and in practice, but it is something that you can think about We've already sat on the other side, so I want you to just do the same thing that you did over there. Again, starting with these 10 lifts here, and then we're going to try to lift up that foot 10 times, and eventually you can sort of assess how far away your butt is from the floor, with the goal of trying to one day get both your cheeks fixed to the floor as you do this. So as you guys see, I have to lift up mine. Still a work in progress, and it just might always be a work in progress for the rest of our lives. But if you do this often enough, and if you practice this on a regular basis, one day you will be able to sit your butt down and do all of these mobility movements there. So the last one, again, is that reach, that lift, and that kick. So we will try to work with, again, 10 reps total of that one there. Going through those ones. And then once you are done, we are going to lay down on our back. So for this next one here, we are laying down on our back. We're going to be working with the hamstrings. So the guys that run down the back of our legs. Starting off, we're just lifting up a leg and just sort of seeing where you end up. What we want to do here is see how far we can pull our leg over while maintaining a straight, completely locked out leg. So very rarely do I ask y'all to lock out your joints, okay? So locking out the joint would be completely straight, but as opposed to having a slight bend in the joint. So for your knee, again, completely straight, and then we have the slight bend. So we want that complete straightness. We also want to take our foot and flex it in towards our face, towards our hips. Now, again, some of us, if we're tighter, we're going to be down here. If you're feeling good, a little looser, you can try to find a position here, and we're going to hold this and breathe into it through 10 deep breaths. So it's going to take us about 30 to 45 seconds, depending on how long and deep our breaths are, which is individual to each of us. But we want to find this position here, and this isn't going to be easy to hold, okay? You're going to feel some work happening through maybe even your core, a little bit through the front of the quad here, to try to keep the leg straight and to try to pull it into that position here. We're also going to feel, again, that stretch through the back of the leg, and we will, again, hang out here, counting our own breath. So I want you to count your breathing, 10 of them. As you go through this, because we're getting everything sort of looser and a bit more open, you might be able to pull it in a little bit further, but we want to avoid pulling in too much so that this hip leaves the floor. We want to keep both hips locked onto the floor, and we will go through, again, those last few deep breaths, 10 total. Okay, and then we'll switch sides. So we're going to try to mimic and do the same thing on the other side here. Again, finding that straight leg position, flexing the foot towards the face, and then pulling up that leg until we feel that sort of uncomfortable tension. Okay, again, it should not be painful, but we're definitely going to feel tense in the hamstring, as well as work in the quad, in the hip, in the abs, as we hold this here and breathe into it. So this is one that you have done with me before, most likely, where we, again, pulling in our leg, but now we're, again, really tapping into our strength of our core, of our quad, and then, again, the flexibility and mobility, rather, of our hamstring to see how high we can lift that leg while maintaining that straight position. So if you're way down here, don't worry about it. One day you will be higher up. But again, it's most important that you keep that leg straight. Okay, so a few more deep breaths and taking your time. Some of us are going to take a little longer than others just because we naturally might take a bit of a deeper, longer breath. And that's all good. I actually prefer that, so that's good for you if you're taking your time with it. Okay, so we're going to relax that now. You can just kind of relax here, take a few deep breaths in this position, just sort of calm down, breathe through all that stretching feeling that you were just getting going on there. The last thing that we're going to do, we're going to sit up here and work with some shoulder mobility. So I'm going to be sitting cross-legged. If this is uncomfortable for you, just find a position that's comfortable to sit in. You can straighten out your legs like this. You could sit up on a chair or the back of your couch if you want, because some of us will just find this cross-legged position uncomfortable, and that's completely normal, okay? So what we're going to do is work with, again, our shoulder mobility. What we want to work on is starting with this overhead reach. So again, for some of us, especially if we've ever had like shoulder injuries or anything like that, this alone can be a challenging position to get into. What we're going to imagine is that there is a wall in front of us. And again, this is something that we've done oftentimes in the warm-up. We've done it laying on our tummy, and we've also done it actually with a wall in front of our face. Today we're going imaginary on it. So we're going to just imagine there's a wall in front of us. Arms are up in front of us, and we want to align our hands so that our pinkies are reaching towards that imaginary wall, and our hands or thumbs are away from the wall. What we're going to do is reach our arms out to the sides, keeping them as straight as possible. As we reach this T position, we're going to rotate the hands. So now the thumbs are down towards the floor, and now we're going to come behind the body and try to get as close to, and I'm going to turn so you guys can see what's happening in the back side here, as close to grabbing onto our elbows as we can. Now, some of us are going to maybe be stuck sort of grabbing onto our wrists, but we're going to try to breathe into this and see if we can reach towards those elbows and hold this here for 2 deep breaths. So we'll go inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and then we'll release that. And again, I'm kind of a little short on space. I'm just going to move away from my wall here. Always got to watch the space management. And then we're going to reverse and do the same thing. So now I'll turn my thumbs up and end up in this starting position. Once again, I'll take 2 deep breaths. So we had a lot of practice with that overhead position today in our conditioning work. If you did struggle with that, and if you found that you couldn't really keep your arms straight, this is definitely something that you should be working on. And it's a very simple exercise, a movement that you can do in pretty much any time when you're sitting at your desk, if you're feeling tight, when you're sitting at home with your kids, in the kitchen, waiting for your meal to cook, whatever it is. Again, the more we can practice these mobility movements, again, moving our own joints and muscles and limbs into these positions, the better and the more successful that you are going to be at them. So again, we're holding here for 2 breaths, maybe getting a little closer than we did last time, maybe staying in the same point. Okay, maybe you're still even back here, and that's okay. Eventually, it will get better, all right? So then we'll come back up to our starting position. We're going to do 3 reps. So we've just done 2. We'll go through 1 more total. Again, through trying to turn the wrists, and then we're going to see if we can get as close to our elbows, our forearms as we can. So we'll hold this here again, 2 breaths. And then we'll release that, ending back up in our overhead position, taking those last 2 deep inhale, exhales. Okay, and then we can release that. And that's our mobility work for today, okay? So we did our 90-90s for the hips, which we felt a lot on the hips. We did that hamstring mobility work, which we felt again in the hamstrings, a little bit in the quads, in the core. And then we had the shoulder one, which was again all about our shoulders. What we're going to do now to finish off today's session, this nice little mobility stretch edition, is going to be our stretching, our static stretching. And that's again working on our flexibility, which is us putting ourselves into these positions with an external force. So starting off with our hip flexor stretch. First things first, if you have a flimsy mat like me, I would highly recommend that you double or triple up the mat or grab a cushion from your couch, something like that, to put underneath your kneecap, because this should not be painful. And if your mat's thin like this, it's going to be painful on the kneecap, okay? And we don't want that. So grab a sweater, put it underneath your knee, whatever it is, find this position. The next thing that we want to do is put ourselves into this pelvic tilt. So naturally, we kind of sit sort of here. Some of us will naturally sit with a bit of an arch in our back. And that is going to cause us a lot of issues down the road. And the only way to improve that is, number one, there's two ways: to be more conscious of it, to not have that arch happening on our back. And then number two, to actively stretch the hip and the quad and the core muscles to get everything into that position. And I actually don't really mean that about the core muscles. Very oftentimes, it's not that we need to stretch our abs and core, it's that we need to strengthen them. Because if this is tight and then this is weak, then it's just going to promote that hip position here. But if we stretch this and we strengthen the core, we're naturally, again, going to be putting ourselves into a more neutral position rather than having that pelvic tilt going on, that forward tilt in our hips. So we want to find that position here. For most of us, again, we just have to sort of tilt our pelvis. You can also think about contracting your glute, and that is also going to put us into that nice stretching position here. For this one, I'm going to time you guys, and I'm going to start that timer right now. I have my running clock in the background here. We're going to hold this for 60 seconds. And the reason why I like to time when we're doing these static stretches and working on our flexibility is so that we can just focus on our feeling and our breathing. Now, sometimes we'll count our breaths in these holds, which is a great option if you don't have a running clock. Sometimes I talk about it. But again, the less thinking that we have to do here, the better. So what I want you to do is think about inhaling nice and deep, sending that air into your tummy, not into your chest. And then as we exhale, I want you to think about, again, sinking into that stretch a little bit deeper. So whether that's pelvic tilting, whether that's squeezing your glute, not with your hand, but actually contracting your glute, or even slightly leaning forward a bit, these should not be painful. I'll remind you again, you should just feel tension, okay? So if you're feeling pain, ease off a bit so that you don't have that direct, sharp pain, like you're feeling like you're gonna pull something. That's not what we're going for here. This kind of stuff, this flexibility training, this stretching, we only want to do it when we're warm. So I wouldn't do it when I'm sitting in my desk or waiting for my meal to cook or whatever it is. We want to make sure that we do a lot of dynamic stretching, which is why it's most important to do this after our sessions, after our training sessions, because we've done all the stuff. We've done the strength movements, we've done the warm-ups, so our body, all the joints are warm and the ligaments and everything around them. And so it just makes us a lot less prone to injury. Because if you're cold, this is what we like to say when you're just, fresh out of bed, or, you've been sitting on your ass all day, and you go to do these stretches, your muscles aren't ready for that. Your joints, your ligaments, your tendons. That's why we want to do these movement stretches. That's why we have so much dynamic movement stuff in our warm-ups, so that we can, again, prevent injury. And we want to do that before we hold these stretches. So that minute is up. Hopefully I distracted you a little bit there. We're going to switch sides and hold this other side here. So same thing. We want to find that positioning in our pelvis, which you have a good idea of how that feels because you've already done the first side there. And again, I didn't mention this, but I'm always holding on. Whenever we're static stretching, you don't want to have to think about balance because we're putting our muscles into these sort of vicarious positions. They're lengthened positions. And then if we, fall, we jerk, and we're just going to maybe end up hurting ourselves. And I mean, dang, that's always what I'm trying to avoid. I'm always talking about how not to injure ourselves. And for most of us, that's why we're here in the first place, so that we, don't hurt ourselves, like picking up a pen off the floor, picking up our kid, or whatever it is. So that's why we want to make sure that we're holding on. Once again, we're going to focus on that breathing. The timer's already started for your 60-second hold on this side. And so we'll just breathe into this, holding this here, feeling this nice opening stretch through the front of the hip. Okay, and we should feel that in the hip. You might feel again a little bit through your quad on that kneeling leg, but directly you should feel it in that hip flexor area there. And we'll hold this here. We have about 15 seconds left. A couple more deep breaths. Oh, and it always feels so nice to do these static stretches, especially after all the work that we just did. Even that mobility was not easy. We can agree. It is pretty challenging, especially if you are not the most mobile person in the world, if you feel quite tight in those movements. Okay, so we'll release this one. What we're going to do now is have a seat on our butt for the last and final static stretch that we're going to work through. This last one, I feel like this one oftentimes is called like a runner stretch. It is all about the hamstring, back of the leg. Now, we've done this very often with two legs extended. We're going to be doing one side at a time, so we'll focus on this leg first, and then we'll switch on the other leg, as opposed to the one where we were laying on our back and I had you lift up your leg. That one, we felt that opening in the back of the hamstring, but again, we were relying upon all of our other muscles to lift ourselves up into that position. Whereas this one, we have gravity, and we're sort of, again, forcing ourselves into that position, which is in our flexibility, our stretching. So what we want to do is align our foot inside of our leg, inside of our thigh here. First things first, we're going to sit up with a very flat back. So if I was sitting to the side and you had a side angle here, you wouldn't see my back sort of rounded. We want to sit as upright as possible. So again, if you're feeling pretty tight, what you can do is slightly lean back and have your hands on the floor. That straight position in your back is going to be really important so that we can get the focus stretch on the hamstring and not include too much through the lower back. We're going to have some time for the lower back, but first we want to focus on the hamstring. So find that position there. Most of us will be able to sort of sit upright with that straight back. And then we're going to turn our shoulders and try to sort of square them off with that leg, which oftentimes will sort of increase that stretch so that we're really feeling it in the back of the leg. If you're still not really feeling it back there, we're going to take this nice straight back and sort of lean forward over top of our leg. So again, this is where your level of flexibility is really going to show. I mean, if you've ever done yoga or really like any type of yoga, you've probably seen people like pull all the way over to the side. And again, that's because this is all that they train. That's all they do is the flexibility. Because we do a lot of strength training, and we're constantly sort of tightening our muscles, we're going to have a harder time getting into that sort of forward bend position than someone who only does yoga and who does this all the time. That being said, that's not a bad thing. Okay, but again, you just have to work with whatever range you have. So we're leaning forward. You're on a timer. I've already started it for 30 seconds, okay? We have about 10 seconds left, where again, we're just feeling that stretch. You might even feel a little bit in the back of your calf. We want to make sure that our foot is upright. We're not pointing our toe, which again is another thing that might increase that stretch. And then now I want you to come back up, okay? Forget about the straight back. We're going to round our back forward, and this is where, again, we might have a better chance of getting closer towards our foot. This is me, so, not a great chance here, but that's okay because I'm feeling this nice opening stretch through my low back, and we're going to hold this here for our last 30 seconds. So yes, we're still going to feel the hamstring, we're still going to feel the calf, but again, because we're rounding our back and we're not sitting upright, we're also going to involve that low back set of muscles into this stretch. And we hold and we breathe into this one. So we have about 10 seconds left before we shall switch sides. Okay. So we'll release that one and then we'll switch, doing the other side, which is going to finish us off today's session. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little mobility stretching addition here. Once again, we'll start off squaring off the shoulders, straight back, leaning forward, and again, solely focusing on that stretch in the back of the leg, maybe a bit in the calf. 30 seconds. Timer's already started. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. This is the kind of stuff that lots of us really need. And again, because we kind of throw in the stretching at the very end, and oftentimes I'll make it an independent stretch where you kind of do it on your own. We're at home and we're working, right? We have little ones at home. We have 1,000 things on our to-do list. And so really sometimes this stuff kind of gets put on the back burner and we just kind of, sign off Zoom room and we leave, finishing the session, sort of not focusing as much on the stretching and mobility as we should. So we're going to make a point starting this week and going forward to have at least one session every week where we sort of focus on it together. As you guys remember, back in the day. So we'll come up, and again, we'll round forward for the second 30 seconds. We have that nice Saturday stretching and mobility session. If that might be something that we do in the future, but again, we will most likely for the next 3 weeks until we are done our live Zoom room classes for the foreseeable future. We're going to transition into our live pause work replays. We will be incorporating some of this stuff into our sessions themselves. But you never know, I might be feeling myself and feel like recording some of these for you as kind of like a standalone session. But hopefully this sort of reminded you why this stuff is so important. And again, we sort of talked about the difference between that mobility and that flexibility. So it's something that you can sort of start to think about within your own lifestyle, how to incorporate these things in, maybe again, adding a bit more of this flexibility training in at the end of our sessions, and thinking more about this mobility work sort of throughout our day, which again, we'll talk about as we go. Okay, my friends, you are done with me. We are done here. Hopefully you feel good. I feel great. That was a nice little mobility stretching session. We are done on this here Wednesday. I will catch you guys tomorrow. We have an upper body strength and core, and then of course our legs on Friday. So thank you so much for joining me live if you were here. And my replay watchers, you rock. Drop a comment below if you are still here watching this with us. And I will catch you next time. Okay, have a great day, my friends.